So we only have 15 minutes for the panel discussion here and lots to talk about. So I tried to structure this based on a lovely dinner. Brokers are all friends that we had on Monday night with the broker teams. So these are the 4 questions, and I'm going to try to take real-time notes as we go. The brokers have seen these questions, but I mean, everybody's welcome to chime in, right? So let's dive straight into the first question, which is compare and contrast ZTF alerts and Rubin alerts. What did Rubin do better? And did Rubin do anything worse? And would any of the brokers like to speak?
I have the microphone. Well, I mean, it depends on other things, but we certainly had a more comfortable, slower start with ZTF with more data. That made a big difference in that we were not supposed to start based on having no training data.
I guess from the entire side, what I can say is what did Rubin do better is providing the forced photometry on the visit images that made it easier to correct the flux for persistent variables. So we want, I mean, for ZTF, there is a way to fix it, but it was not very straightforward. It's kind of like convoluted. People who have used Antares might have faced this. So that was great. Is there anything Rubin might have improved? Maybe this is not really an improvement, but you know, we're still waiting for advice on the thresholds for the reliability. It was great that when ZTF started, you know, the project advisors, you know, use these thresholds. So we had, that's how the L1 filters, the so-called L1 filters for Antares started, existing, because we wanted to get rid of artifacts. Right now, we might be ingesting artifacts from Rubin. So.
Okay. Anybody else from the audience want to add to that? Oh, yeah, sure. Anais and then Guillermo.
It's very quick. On a positive side, I think Rubin, because templates will be evolving, we have planned that they will tell us when the templates are changing, which for ZTF, it was an issue sometimes. So that will be something that any survey, if you're changing templates, please let us know. Because things, there was at one point something changed.
Something changed, but not, yeah.
Well, you can
go ahead. Yeah. Well, I mean, we made a decision very, very early on that we would never change the references. But there have been changes in what's available and little, I mean, minor deltas rather than we're wiping everything and we're starting, which is different from the, you know, Rubin. I mean, as Eric was saying, they're going to have this evolution that each year may be a new reference set.
Yeah, so I just want to put this into context. So we have had only like a month of alerts from Rubin, right? So, well, we started in September having the alerts, but this is going to be evolving. So I hope that if you ask the same thing in a year from now, the answers are going to be different, right? So I don't remember exactly what we did with CDF when we started, to be honest.
No, so the alerts, the public alert stream started in June of 2018, but we had been commissioning since October of 2017, and so there was sort of stuff kicking around. But I think Eric made the point very validly that, you know, with Rubin, with ZTF, we were doing everything before and then sort of said, you know, no one was really watching us. Whereas Rubin's under the microscope. And
right.
Everything that goes wrong, it's sort of...
And at least we started ingesting CDF alerts in 2019. So it was like 2 years after you started commission.
I think Gautam wants to add something.
Yeah, I mean, as both an ex-broker person and a current Rubin person, you know, one very clear difference that sort of showed up when people brought up postage stamps as a difference and how they're too small with Rubin is that Rubin had a science team that is basically completely separate from the pipeline development team. And they really are isolated. And decisions like that are precisely because the science team and the pipeline team are not in constant communication about what the two groups need. And so I think we will end up having to live with the legacy of that decision that was made before any of our time, but was bloody stupid.
It's what, well, it's what happens when you're 10 times the size and
Yeah.
100 times the money.
Yeah.
Exercise. Okay, so on that note, let's move on to the next question. Now this is a question about what would you like to see Roman rapid alerts to ease their ingestion into the current broker suite. So I heard at least 3 brokers, Alerce, Antares, and Boom, Babamol, say that they intend on ingesting the Roman rapid alerts. Alerce actually has funding for it, which is great. The other 2 are speaking out of confidence and hoping proposals come through. Okay, but that's great. Now the question is, what can you have many members of the Rapid team here? What would you guys like to see from a space telescope? And having this conversation, you know, several months before launch, but alerts could be as soon as early 2027, right? So, Jacob.
I mean, I think we certainly intend to ingest the Roman alerts as well, but I didn't want to give a specific time commitment because question when we actually manage to do it and how easy it is depends on how similar it is to something that we have running. Basically, ZTF or the more similar it is to ZTF or Rubin, the easier it will be.
So the rapid prototype alert packets are, you know, in your inbox in the hackathon and on GitHub. It's very similar to the Rubin schema because we're just trying to keep things simple for the brokers. But there are some new things to add, right? I mean, for example, the rapid alerts will have Rubin history in them. Maybe some interesting metadata. We're talking about adding photo Zs and things like that. So there'll be some other, and the full Roman history with each point, because it's a smaller stream. So things like that could help you guys.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. And also something that's super important is communication with the brokers. So, yeah. So we know whenever you change something, we know beforehand.
I mean, I know, you know, the Rapid PI is also the PI of the broker, so there's a bit of
I
conflict.
have no idea what that is.
But I think, I mean, I think it's one of the important things is just stability, so that we have good enough examples and they're close enough to what's going to come, because as soon as the real stuff starts, the noise model will be completely different. And so we will have to retrain, even if we've trained on perfect simulated data, you know, for real bogus and a joint real bogus and stuff like that. So I think that's maybe the concern, or that's where the stumbling blocks will be initially, I think.
And Roman has a very tight 90-day commissioning period. Ben mentioned that Skylar put together a commissioning activity request for repeat observations in those 90 days so that we can get our pipelines working. So we're really hoping to give, you know, first alerts as soon as possible. It's a space mission. Everything becomes public immediately as soon as that 90 days is done, day 91. I think everything gets released. Nice, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So I just want to mention something. One of the challenges of ingesting multiple streams is we have finite resources. And I think this is something important to consider. As an astronomer, I want everything to be with everything, but as a broker person, I can see the difficulties of that. One of the things that we could think of that requires less infrastructure and resources investment is if there is a stream that is small, like for example, extragalactic candidates from the high time domain. I probably am saying it wrong. The survey that looks in the extragalactic high cadence thing. If there's a small stream that could be transmitted like VOE events or something that's a smaller stream, it can be cross-matched, for example, with Rubin or CTF, but not hosting the whole alerts in a database. So that could be something that is a middle ground where we can contribute as brokers and still do science that people are interested on.
I think that segues very nicely into sort of the 4th question, and we can do that and then come back to number 3, which is sort of the complementarity and difference in science focus between the current alert broker suite, right? I mean, does it even need to be strictly complementary? Is focus good, bad? I mean, should all brokers try to do everything, etc. Right? I mean, I think it's really a wonderful set that, you know, that exists today, right? The question is looking ahead, what could be ways to think about this ecosystem? Do you want to finish your thought, Anais?
Yes, of course. I think it's a really strength that we all come from different communities do things differently. We're complementary in many things, but we share a lot as well. From machine learning scores to Host Galaxy Association to infrastructure. But we also have very different ways of thinking. Like Alerce has the classifier that if you sum the probabilities, probably gives you one. Well, we decided against it because we wanted that each science team does something different. And I think that's a strength. If you want something general, you will go to a classifier. If you want something very precise, you will go to another one. I see it as a strength, and that doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk to each other. I think we do a lot, and we learn from each other and try to serve the community as best as we can.
Monica?
Yeah, so just adding on to Anaya's comment, she also brought this up in her talk, right? So we are community brokers, meaning, the science is basically driven by the community. So that's our first goal. What the individual team does, that's not important, I think. Not that it's not important for one's individual science, but I mean, the broker is for the community. So you have to define what science you want to do. Of course, we are very complementary to, Antares, for instance, I would say that we have a gap in machine learning regime. We can deploy ML filters, but we don't have an in-house built ML algorithm. Alerce, Think, I mean, these brokers are doing, awesome work with ML. I don't know if we want to touch on the second question.
Sure.
So just commenting on that regarding, I think redundancy here is also pretty important because, we are real-time system. It might even be a necessity, right? Because at the very least, maybe the target data that you're interested in, which you are exploring in Antares, as an example, is corrupted. You can go and check it out in Alerce or other brokers, right? So I think that's my take.
Okay, Jacob, and anybody else from the audience? Just
Yeah, I think we all agree that complementarity and redundancy are good as long as we can keep it. That's another. I think most of the broker teams are actually in some sorts of one-person failure mode, in the sense that they're a critical person that if they break a leg while there's some major software update, things could break indefinitely. I mean, in some sense, that makes it good that there's redundancy, but I also think there are specific components that can be co-developed that a lot of people are using that could be widely used by, and we've started the discussion among some of the brokers, can we break some things off and actually make them useful independent tools that can also be used outside the broker community? We talked about things like Galaxy Host Association.
and did a question from the audience, a comment?
Actually, there used to be this thing called the Virtual Observatory, which had this idea of a registry in which all the brokers would be in there and there would be ways of flipping from one to the other. So, I mean, there has been some thought prior art in that, but there may be something like that comes up again. But I think actually which is somewhat relevant to what you're asking, none of us actually has a quality of service agreement. None of us say we will be up 24/7 or whatever. So, having multiple is absolutely necessary because, our network can go down here and then someone needs to be able to switch over. So we do need the community maybe does need some mechanism, a weather service or something that maybe gets connected as a TOM component or something like that, just to see what's up and that sort of thing, to see where that's coming.
So
The goodness of the heart effort.
I think this is a good thing to raise. There has been some talks about if we can have a way to translating one filter in one system to another. And this is something we can discuss about as a broker. But I can tell you from experience with not my Think hat, but as an astronomer hat, I'm in some ESO large programs, I'm in TIDES, in Foremost, and we are hearing different brokers with similar filters, but not exactly the same because we know that each broker does things differently. So we are trying to complement the information from the different brokers to have a more complete sample for follow-up. And I think
Ben?
You have a bunch of
Yeah.
questions. So.
Ben, please go ahead.
Oh, well.
Coming to your communication point,
Roman will be very heterogeneous. So, how do we communicate that? And, I've always felt it should probably be somehow machine readable, because when people go back and train, they're going to want to, no one wants to go back and dig through Slack to see what happened on that day. Have you ever thought about having that kind of log or metadata for a stream?
Just like no alerts last night, it was raining.
We have thought about it.
That's not it.
Do you mean like a version control or do you mean just like a
No, just-
summary?
What happened last night? Like,
Doesn't
Only
this-
internally, yes.
Doesn't Lacer have something like that?
sorry,
Doesn't Lacer have something like that?
Lacer is the only missing broker, so we
I mean,
cannot
you
wake
can-
anybody up in UK right now.
I mean, partially,
So we're storing the logs, but we don't provide access to those logs to the community. It's
but
like
you can
an
ask for
internal-
them, but you can reproduce the stream, right? I mean, that the actual system that's running is version controlled. So you can grab the alerts that were running and rerun segment, and you will find what's there.
I saw Ashish. No, I thought Ashish's hand went up first. We'll come back to Ozzy. Okay.
Ozzy, did you ask your question? Oh, okay, we'll go, you've had your hand up the longest.
I just wanted to make a comment about ZTF versus Ruben. I was not here for ZTF coming online, but one thing that was challenging as a user was not having any kind of test or example, like this is what the brokers will serve from LSST to know like, oh, these are the fields that are going to be populated. We started to kind of try and guess a little bit, but I think for Roman, that would be something that would be really useful so that the downstream users can start thinking about what filter do I write, what information do I have available, what do I care about, what do I ignore, and things like that. Even better would be a test stream like LVK does so that you can actually test, your receiving and all of that.
Yeah, and just in case it's not obvious, I mean, the ZTF service scientist was also Eric Baum, who's the Ruben alert production lead, right? So when ZTF started to dream up alert streams and how to do them, this was very much in the context of preparing for Ruben with a live stream, right? And University of Washington was a partner, and that's how those alerts started to flow. So certainly for looking ahead to Roman, Ozzy, you're right. I mean, as much preparation the community can have, the better, but the clock is ticking. Okay, we're do we have time for one last question? But there's also, I mean, the coffee is getting cold.
Okay,
sorry,
sorry, I will
please go
say
ahead.
something also, but maybe in favor of the brokers. I have used more than one broker also. So when the point of redundancy was touched, I think that redundancy is actually very useful because we don't do all the science. We do a specific science. And I think we are not yet machines ourselves when we do the science. So we don't look at 1,000 or 1,000,000 light curves. We look at a subset. So sometimes having different views on a different target is very important.
Okay, anybody else who really wants to say something that's more important than hot coffee? Okay, Ashish.
One thing that I wanted to mention about the complementarity aspect is that we don't have too much about per class uncertainty quantification from most brokers. And especially as we go to Fenter magnitudes, both with Ruben and with Roman, that will be important. And that's where the complementarity could perhaps come in. So we can have specialization. Just like what Rachel asked, for instance, about micro lensing. If a broker doesn't handle that, then where should it go? What does it get? And so on.
Okay, final word from our esteemed panelists here.
Can I say something about the question we started?
You're at negative coffee time. Go for it.
I would actually like to remove the brokers from that question. I would love to see if the surveys of ZTF, Ruben, Roman published test alerts and notebooks for how to filter them without us being involved so that you can go and loop through the alerts and say, this is the one I want to have, this is filter. And then you come with your filter to us.
Okay, that's definitely something we can discuss over coffee. Let's thank our panelists again.